Hello, hello, hello. It is Willie Cartwright with from Save to Sane. I'm here with you again today. Our second podcast of the month. We do these every other week, and so I'm glad to have you guys with me today. Wonderful, wonderful day. I hope that all of you are having a great day today. We're going to have a great discussion today. We're going to have a little fun. Hope all of you join us. Those of you who are not able to join us live, please take a look at the replay. It's going to be well worth it. But for those of you who are here live today, I certainly appreciate that. And please send me a message. Let me know that you are here today. I see Taisha has said notifications on. Taisha, great, good to have you. Awesome to have you. I hope that you are out there listening. It's been a minute since we've had you on. Hope you are doing well. And that gets me directly into how I normally start my shows. For those of you who are new, I begin my shows by thanking a couple of important people, people who without them this show would not be possible. And so the first person is Taisha Essick. She's been instrumental in us bringing this program to you and getting me started. She found me when she was in her journey, a process of leaving religion. Found some stuff that I was doing, and she encouraged me and she's been helping me to keep this podcast going. And so I certainly appreciate her, and she's always, always welcome on the show. Her insight, her fire is always welcome. Those of you who I would encourage you to follow her podcast. She does a variety of things on her podcast. She talks about a variety of things. She touches on religious stuff, but there's a whole host of other things that she talk about. You want some directly in your face commentary. Follow her on her social media pages. She's hilarious. You might not always agree, but you will walk away with some thoughts and thinking about some things, right? So certainly love that. And thank you, Taisha. Secondly, is my wonderful wife, Salima Cartwright, who is supportive of me, my number one fan, as she calls herself, behind the scenes, pulling the strings, doing all of the things that I either don't have time to do or not as capable as she is in doing. Some of that would be the technology stuff. And so she is always there supporting me on that. I oftentimes will run the topics by her and see what she thinks. She's probably a little bit more level-headed about this whole religious thing than I am. And so sometimes I need that balance. So yeah, so we are thankful for those two individuals that makes this show possible. And of course, all of you who tune in to make this show possible. So as I said at the beginning of the year, what's up, Jay Jamin? Glad to have you. Greetings. As I said at the beginning of the year, if some of you have missed it, this has now become part of a full-time endeavor for me. I am in this space full time, meaning this is what I do for a living. Not only the podcast, but speaking engagements, the book. I'm in the process of writing another book. I will tell you guys about that as we get sooner to that happening. And so, with that being said, before I really get into the conversation of the meat of the podcast today and our topic, I just want to do a couple of maybe house cleaning things. First of all, as I will always do from now on, is promote my book, my most recent book, From Save to Sane: My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity has been detrimental to the African American community. And that is me, Willie Cartwright. You can find this book on Amazon at $19.99. If you want a signed copy, please send me an email, or you can email me at WO Cartwright, and I'm going to eventually put it in here. You can email me at WO Cartwright at yahoo.com. I will send you my Cash App, and you can Cash App me $19.99 in your address, and we can get you a copy of the book. Give me a second. Let me put this in here. Let's see. that me? Yeah, wocartwright@yahoo.com. That is, I have several emails, but that's the easiest, the quickest one to reach me. Let me know you're interested in getting a copy of the book. Secondly, I'm going to keep you guys abreast to where I am speaking. Some of it is open to the public and sometimes it's not, or you can get a copy of some speeches or some presentations that I make. But so far for February coming up, I will be speaking here locally in the Las Vegas area, Sunday Assembly, which will be this upcoming Sunday, the 2nd, I think. I think it's at 1:30 at the Atomic Museum. It is Sunday Assembly is a atheist monthly meeting that they have. I will be speaking there talking about nuns and secularization in our society. That will be at 1:30 on Sunday the 2nd here in the local Las Vegas area, again at the Atomic Museum. Those of you who may be local to Vegas, I'll be there. And then later on, actually the following week, during the weekend of the 6th, 7th, and 8th, I will be speaking at the SEPES conference. It is the Southeastern Psychology Conference. That's in Greenville, South Carolina, I think. I think I'm speaking at that event on that Friday morning. I think at 10:30, that 10 o'clock or 10:30 Friday that morning. That is a conference, so that is a private event unless you are a member or have been invited. Hopefully that can be recorded. Certainly the Sunday Assembly presentation will be recorded and posted on my YouTube page. On the YouTube page as well as my website. So with that being said, again, those of you out there who may have or may be part of an organization or know someone who's looking for a speaker in this space of secularism, non-belief, even if it's a religious conference, but they want a balance, please recommend me, refer me, or send me the information, and I'll reach out to them as well. So thank you so much for allowing me to do that before we get started. So today's topic, the meshing of white supremacy and westernized Christianity. Those of you who are familiar with me, you know that I have often said, and I've written in my book and other writings that I've done, that Christianity, westernized Christianity, is the religious arm of white supremacy. So clearly, obviously, what we're seeing, especially now in our politics, and I don't want to go too far in the political woods, but there is going to be a connection in our discussion today between religion and politics. But it's what we're seeing today in our politics is absolutely a meshing, a coming together in a more forceful and a more obvious way of white supremacy and westernized Christianity. And so today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why that may be dangerous, what can be done about it, and what about it is necessarily dangerous to us. But as I always do, I want to just give you some context, some background into how and why I came up with this topic, and also just a couple of things that have happened to me over the week. Many of you know who follow me that I am very open and vocal on my social media page, whether that be Instagram, whether that be Facebook, about my non-belief. But it is my page, and so I have the freedom to do that. Most of the pushback, the challenges and the debates and the dialogues that I have come from Facebook. And my theory behind that is that Facebook is for old people or older people, and those people tend to be stuck in their ways, especially friends that I've had for the better part of 40, and in some cases 45 or even 50 years, since I was a really, really young child. And so there tend to be more pushback on Facebook than, say, Instagram or even TikTok. And so I do have a presence on TikTok, I do have a presence on Instagram, but the people that follow me on Instagram and TikTok seem to be, generally speaking, more progressive leaning more toward the non-belief side, and so I don't get the same pushback that I do on Facebook. But I enjoy it. I learn from it as well. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me prepared. And then hopefully I am educating those who engage with me or those who come back and read the comments from both sides. So I certainly appreciate that. So clearly, this topic was born of the recent occurrences in our political landscape with the election and the inauguration of Donald Trump, president. Now, let me make this clear before we get into this. I am not a fan of Donald Trump at all. I think he's a disgusting human being. That is just my opinion of him. But I am also not a fan or wasn't a fan of Joe Biden because I think from the members of each party, I think for us collectively as African Americans, there is not a huge difference given the grand scheme of things, and that's debatable. And I don't want to get into a debate with anyone on that. I am more so a person who believes in trying to create, at least when it comes to African Americans, a self-sustaining community, a self-sustaining environment where we can depend on each other more so. And I think with that, that will give us the political power that we think we may need. And if we do it correctly, we won't need as much of the political part of the political powers we think we do. But that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother discussion. So I'm saying that to say this is not a it's not a discussion about the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party. It is more so about the causes of why we're in the situation that we're in. And in particular to this show, it is about the undergirding of religion and what it plays, the role that it plays in how we got to where we are today. There are certainly conservative and Republican policies that I have benefited from, and there are certainly, at least in the past, have been conservative or Republican policies that I think have been good. And I say the same thing for the Democratic side. There have been progressive and liberal policies that have been good, and then there have also been some that have been bad. So again, this is not a political discussion per se, but of course, politics are going to bleed into this because we're talking about the meshing of white supremacy, white nationalism, which is a stronghold of the Republican Party, or at least those members, and that viewpoint. Not saying that there isn't any in the other party, because there certainly are white supremacists, white nationalists in the Democratic Party as well. So don't fool yourself in thinking that that's not the case. But anyway, and so as I went on through the week, I made a post. So this is sort of off, but I just wanted to clear that up before we get into all of that, because I know what I'm going to hear. So sort of a little bit off topic, but getting us into where we're trying to go. I posted about a book that I am currently reading. So the book is called Society Without God. It is by Phil Zuckerman. Understanding that the author, Dr. Phil Zuckerman, is, I think he's out of California. He's part of the Claremont schools, those of you who may be familiar. But what this book talks about is simply, he spent 2 years in Sweden and Denmark. These are two very secular societies, and he just chronicled the things that he learned about being part of a society or a country that is a lot less religious than this country. And so one of the things that's often talked about when you have a discussion with believers is that many of them believe that without religion, without a belief in God, that as a society, we are doomed to fail. We are doomed to be chaotic. Crime will be running rampant, and it will be complete chaos. Clearly, I am not in that boat. I know for a fact, given the stats and the research behind it, that is not the case at all. And so his book outlines that by giving us an inside look at the Danish society and Sweden society, again, that is extremely secular societies and how well they flourish. And so with that being said, I posted the book. Here's a book here. Those of you who want to read, it is a really, really good book. Even if you're not, I'm sorry, yeah, even if you're not, if secularism is not necessarily your thing, or you're just now getting into it, it is an excellent read so far. It is well written, and it gives you insight about other societies. And so it's a really, really well done book, in my opinion, so far. I have not completed it, but I do know the gist of it. So I posted that, and so quote unquote, a friend of mine. I've been knowing this guy. I don't know, 7, 8 years, maybe a little bit more than 7, 8 years. And he and I were part of an organization when I was in Atlanta that was supportive of Black men and all of our issues, and it allowed us to come together and sort of express those issues. But this brother is a Muslim brother. And so he took exception. He took exception to what I had posted, and he's one of these people who believes that without a God, or without a belief in a God, that society completely collapses. So he and I have been back and forth in a discussion about these things. I told him I never said that these countries were perfect, but if you look at any quality of life metric, these countries and other secular countries score really, really well, really high. The more religious countries, especially the Muslim countries, score really low in quality of life. And when I say quality of life, I'm talking about happiness, well-being, infant mortality rate, how long one lives, quality of food, quality of healthcare, quality of education, whether or not people feel suppressed or oppressed at home. So quality of life metrics, all of that. And so he and I are going back and forth, and purposely, guys, I withheld a lot of information, about him and his religion and his faith, because I try to keep it civil, especially with my brothers, and especially with those people who are part of the Muslim faith, as well as the Christian faith. I do try to keep it simple. And also because I kind of know this brother. But eventually, this brother accused me of, so now you're taking morality advice from a Jew, which I don't understand what the difference is. And then he talked about how these countries have a high rate of child pornography. And so I had to educate the brother and let him know that the countries that have the highest rate of child pornography, I don't know why he jumped on this. But I said that the people who have the highest rate, the countries that have the highest rate of child pornography are religious countries, with the U.S. being number one. And then he continued to persist, and I asked him a couple of times. I said, "Listen, this is not this. This is not good grounds for you. You don't stand good on these grounds right here. This is not an argument that you want to have, given the faith that you are part of." And so you need to sit back and just let this one pass you by. He continued. I mentioned how his faith, Muslim faith, was first to enslave our ancestors out of Africa. We went through that whole idea. He still kept pushing. Finally, I had to tell us, listen, you're talking about child pornography, but the founder of your faith married a child. A girl between the ages of 6 and 10, depending on where you're reading and where you get the information from, but certainly a child. I say, and you still choose to follow this faith, knowing that your founder, your leader of the faith, was a pedophile. And so that was, earlier today. I haven't heard anything back since I made that comment to him. But we said some other things. So I said that to say that these are the things that we encounter. These are the things I encounter in my daily life and engaging. And so in a roundabout way, in an indirect way, it is important that we have this discussion today about the meshing of white supremacy and Westernized Christianity. Because what it does, from the Christianity part of it, is that it takes poor, middle and poor people, socioeconomics, who for whatever reason, they place the value of their faith above everything else. And so the powers to be are taking advantage of that group of people by pulling them with the carrot of religion, and they're too indoctrinated to see what's going on. So I thought it was interesting and important that we have that discussion. Um, and so when we talk about white nationalism, and those of you who are out there following us, please chime in, make a comment, ask a question, give a comment, have have an observation. So when we talk about white nationalism or Christian nationalism, understand that and I don't want to say the founding of this country, because this country already existed. The Native American people were already here. But as the European settlers came over, many of them grasped to this idea of it always slips my mind. Anyway, the belief that they were divinely inspired, divinely orchestrated, and divinely that God Himself said to these settlers that you must have this country. This country must be for you. It must be a God-fearing country, right? And so that's the beginning of Christian nationalism. If you read about nationalism, almost every country has a level of nationalism, which means that you're just proud of your country. In a lot of cases, you put your country first. And then when you combine Christian nationalism with it, then it becomes a thing of, well, this is my country, and my country is a Christian nation, and it should be ran as such. Here's where we get into the issue. And then when you throw white supremacy on it, because again, the settlers, the so-called founders of this country, as we know it today, were European. And so they automatically came over thinking that they were superior to everyone else that was not of European descent. Kofi, what's going on? How you doing? Glad to have you. And so now we have the meshing of it. And so when I talk about Western Christianity, please understand what I'm saying. Westernized Christianity is a bastardized version of Christianity that originally started in Judea or Northeast Africa. I'm not giving it credence, or I'm not saying that because it started where it started, or because back then there's any more validity to it than what it is now. But I certainly would tell you the way that it is practiced now, it is a bastardized version, and it is certainly used as a tool, and even more corrupt than what it may have been originally. I personally believe that at some point in the infancy of almost every religion, there was a really honest reason for it. That was a really genuine reason for it, and then it became a tool. It began to be interpreted wrong for the powers to be, and people just abused it and misused it. And I think that's what I don't think, but I know that's what's going on now. Melanated, what's going on? Greetings from Jacksonville, Florida. I hear the weather there is pretty decent today. I don't know how close you are to Tampa, but I have a cousin in Tampa. He said the weather was wonderful, so I'm assuming you guys are not that far away. So good deal with that, but glad to have you. And so what are the dangers of white supremacy meshing with Westernized Christianity? A while ago, I talked about this country becoming a soft theocracy. What is actually becoming, as we can see it, is an attempt to have a dictator, a president who wants to be a dictator, oligarchy, an oligarch. Basically, those who have the money are in rule. I have a hard time today pronouncing certain words. But anyway, and so we got that going on with that. And so we have the soft theocracy part of it. The theocracy part of it is really what's really driving it, because you can't be at the top and able to do all the things you do unless a group of people put you in that position. At least that's how it works in this country. Now, once you're there, as we can see, if you decide to throw everything out the window, you can pretty much try to do anything you want to do. And so what drove, in part, so many people who are middle class and poor to do this, right? And a large part of it was their belief, their desire to have this country ran more in a theocracy style, right? They believe that it is better for this country to be ran based on their interpretation of the Bible, religious principles, and what they believe to be Christian morality. Again, cherry picking the things from the Bible or Christianity that they want done. And so the powers to be understood this, and so they used Westernized Christianity or using Westernized Christianity as a tool. But basically, at the end of the day, many of these people are not religious, at least the people in power are not religious or not Christian or whatever at the top, but they understand the power of it and the power of the tool. And so they've done that. Their only purpose is to maintain control, power, and the money. But Christianity and religion in general makes us blind to that. And so that's one of the issues with it. And that's why it is dangerous, because those of us on here as part of this space, as well as some believers and many believers, understand that it is dangerous and wrong to try to run the country like a theocracy. If you take a look at a lot of Middle Eastern countries, Muslim countries, they're doing the same thing. They're just using Islam, replacing Christianity with Islam. And we see how that's going. We see the suppression and the oppression of women. We see the suppression and oppression of those in the LGBT community, and other things. And so you have that, but then when you add the white supremacy part to it, you also got to get at some point an attempt to suppress and oppress those people of color. And so you have the meshing of it all. And at the end of the day, who will be sitting at the top will be white male heterosexuals. And then everybody else fall up underneath that. And so that's not a society that I want to be a part of. And I'm sure it's a society that many of you don't want to be a part of. And as I go back to as I think back to the students that I taught over the last couple of years, that age group, there's certainly not the kind of society that they want to be a part of. And so this is dangerous. Again, it is another one of the dangers of religion. And having so many in this country being religious, and even to the point where they put religion above who they are, their family, their nationality, their ethnicity, their community. Religion sits at the top. And so this has become sort of a dangerous thing. And then on the flip side of that, on the other side of that, one of the things that I think religion does as well, especially to the opposing side, in this case, it would be liberals, is that it makes them apathetic to what's really going on. Because then you hear comments like, well, Jesus will fix it, or God will fix it, or the only thing we have is God and Jesus. And let me give you an example of that. So those of you who are familiar with Hakeem Jeffries, he is one of the Democratic leaders in Congress. I think he's Speaker of the House, if I'm not mistaken. But he has a position there. And so he's one of the leaders in the Democratic Party. He's an African American man. And so what he has said recently is that presidents, quote unquote, presidents come and go, but God is still in control, something to that effect. And so what that says to me, and those other people who have elected him and other people like him, is that they refuse to fight. People who elected him and other Democrats, from a political standpoint, they elected them to do a certain job and to fight back. But if the extent of your fighting is, well, it's going to happen, and so God is still in control, then you as a politician, you are spineless. But this is what religion does to a lot, of people in that position. And so that was one of the earliest complaints that I had about religion when I first started moving away from religion, was that the thought process, me believing that religion to a certain extent made us dependent, made us weak-minded, made us too dependent on this external divine force that doesn't exist. And it castrated us from being able to do the things that we needed to do to improve our conditions, our community, and help the people around us. And we see that going on now. Couple of comments. Melanated said, I'm 3.5 hours from Tampa, but the weather here has been pleasant for the last couple of days. Okay, good, cool, good deal. Thank you. Tron 7000, glad to have you with us. Please don't compare FBA to these other groups. I don't compare FBA to these other groups. So I don't understand what you mean by that. But there's context to what I said, and so please understand the context to what I said. It is not a comparison, but it is part of a larger conversation, and there is context within that. But I thank you for joining us. I thank you for the comment, and so please continue. Coffee said he is. I'm assuming that you're talking about Jeffries. FBA is a white supremacist group in blackface. Okay, so that's a discussion that you guys can have, or that's a discussion that's not a discussion that I particularly engage in here. But again, as I've always said, all comments are welcome as long as they are relevant and contextual to what we are speaking about. Yeah, appreciate it, Tron. No problem whatsoever. I think we're all here to learn from each other. But the danger. So let's do a generally speaking broad statement. I think what most of us will agree on here is that there is danger for all of us if religious individuals, religious people, the religious body have their way, right? And so that's where I like to start and sort of keep it in that field, because that's what this podcast is about. My job here is to bring awareness. One of my jobs here is to bring awareness to what's going on with religion, and in some cases, as it bleeds over into politics, or there's a connection between the two. I am more concerned with how we are easily influenced through religion, and religion is a tool, and how in being influenced, some of us tend to fall in line with those who otherwise would be our enemy, because we think we have a commonality when it comes to religion. Oftentimes, many of my liberal religious friends would tell me that they are worshiping a different God than a lot of the evangelicals, right? I always push back and say that's not the case. You guys are worshiping the same God, and that if these people, as bad as they are, they're only sinning differently than the way that you are sinning. And so if they do 2 or 3 things that the Bible says is necessary to make it to heaven, and we're making an assumption in this case for this contextually for this conversation that heaven exists. It doesn't, but heaven exists. They will be in heaven with you. And I said it to them to prove a point, to make a point. The larger scale of it, though, however, is that there is a difference in how most liberals, especially African-American liberals, worship and their belief and their identity and their devoutness to religion to what many evangelicals do and say. And so from that standpoint, I can kind of agree with them. Unfortunately, though, it is a detriment to the collective African-American community. Those of you here, you've heard me say this many, many times before, but we are the only group, African-Americans are the only group who see life completely through the prism of our religious faith. Where other groups, the evangelicals included, Christian evangelicals included, they see life through the prism of self-preservation. And so while we, on one hand, are always trying to do what we think is right, according to the Bible and our interpretation of biblical scripture, and those who may be Muslim as well, Muslim brothers and sisters out there as well. Others are primarily concerned with self-preservation. And so what you see today, white supremacy is about self-preservation. Westernized Christianity is a bastardized way, and they've twisted Christianity as a tool so that they can continue to preserve what they believe is their way of life. And so that is really what white supremacy is all about. It's about the preservation of a white society. Now, I'm going to be accused of being a racist for some of the people that come on here and hear this, but I'm giving you the reality of the conversation. And so westernized Christianity is even more dangerous because those people in power understand how to use it. If you go to other countries and you see people practicing religion, it is more of a sort of a naive, we really believe this. As weird as it may look to those of you who either have never been part of a religious group, or those of you like me who are now sitting on the outside looking in, there is still a bit of naivety to these people in the way they practice religion in other countries. I'm thinking mostly about some African countries and some Central and South American countries. It's more of a genuine, I really believe this, I really need this, this helps me to get through life. And I think at the end of the day, religion was really started for that purpose from a personal level, right? Well, what makes westernized Christianity more dangerous is that it is in the hands of white supremacists who understand how to twist it and turn it and use it to maintain power and money and the status quo. And so that's why it is dangerous, regardless of your political affiliations or your political standings. I certainly understand that there are, again, as I've said before, that there are certainly Republican or conservative policies that help all of us, including me. But that is a different conversation than when we talk about what white supremacy and the meshing of westernized Christianity is doing and has done. It is difficult to separate the two, right? There are for many of my brothers and sisters who are conservative. And let me back up. Generally speaking, African Americans are conservative, right? We are conservative people. You look at how we spend our money, up until recently. You look at the jobs that we take. You look at how we position ourselves. You look at the communities that we live in, even our devoutness to religion. All of that points to a community that is generally conservative, and we really have been conservative. Conservative in the raw word, in the raw sense of the word conservative. What we have not been, at least recently, is Republican. But there is a segment of us who are. A lot of that is obviously these people. We are conservative in nature, but there are some things that they've seen that Black Republicans have seen that is appealing to them, the Republican Party, and they gravitate to that. There's also the opposite of that, where those individuals who may have gravitated to that party are seeing the negatives in the Democratic Party, which I am certainly one of those individuals who have certainly seen the negatives in the Democratic Party. But again, trying to parse out and separate all of those things is really difficult. But I want us to be careful, and I want us to be aware, and I want us to see the dangers, again, of westernized Christianity and its merging, its meshing with white supremacy. And so for me, the only thing for me personally, that supersedes the fear of this country becoming a complete theocracy is that this country becoming going back to what it was, 100 years ago. And so that's the only thing that's the only thing that supersedes that for me. But when you combine the two, then it really sets off alarms in my head about this. And I think that the best way to fight it for me is what I'm doing now. Is to sort of maybe if we can cut out as much as we can the whole religious aspect of it, or the religious part of it, then maybe that support, that baseline support from middle and poor socioeconomic people in this country, maybe that support will be there, and then they're able to take the blinders off and see it for what it is. And so that's why this is the topic for the day. And this is why I've been talking about this for the last 30 or 40 minutes on that. And so I just want to let me read to you guys again what a little bit about Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is belief that the Bible should guide national law and that religious leaders should be governed from that position. That is scary to me. What is going on, Neo? Neo is here. Neo is a good friend of mine. Check her out on her podcast as well. I always got to say, I got to shout us out. Got to support those of us in this space. So glad to have you, Neo. But Christian nationalism, which is just a segment of white supremacy, it's a hybrid between white supremacy and then Westernized Christianity coming together. So you get Christian nationalism, right? It is dangerous. We don't want to live in a country that is ruled by the Bible. Right. I mean, let me say that again. We don't want to live in a country where our laws are coming from the Bible. We do live in a country where historically some of our laws have been, as a result of Christians and their interpretation of the Bible. But we see what that has gotten us from the standpoint of the oppression and the suppression of those in the LGBT community. And I know that I have followers and listeners and even friends who watch this that are not supporters of the LGBT community. Part of it is because of your religion. Part of it because you just flat out don't understand it, and that's fine. But what I am is, and I am in support of the LGBT community. Those of you who maybe knew me 20 years ago, you would have never heard me say that. But the reason why is because I'm in support of other human beings. Who someone chooses to sleep with or love is none of my business. What is my business is that I treat people the same way that I want to be treated, regardless of whatever. But if you can't get behind the LGBT community in that situation or that cause, then white nationalism also suppresses and oppresses women. So if you have a sister, a wife, a daughter, a mother, if you yourself is a woman, then you also part of that. White nationalism eventually attempts to suppress and oppress people of color, right? It suppresses and oppresses science, which affects medicine. So there are a myriad of ways that white nationalism is a detriment to all of us, right? And so you can't pick your way out of it, right? And so we all should be concerned about this. What I am happy about, though, is that as I continue to do my research for presentations that I'm doing, it is holding consistent that those individuals that are younger than Generation X, some millennials and Generation Z, and those below Generation Z are pushing away from religion, organized religion, and that is standing pat. That is not decreasing. It is, as a matter of fact, it is increasing, and so I'm happy to see that. Neo X said they will be all right. They will be. Kofi said, but if LGBTQ is wrong, that means God is wrong because He created gay people. Kofi, there is so much in that, and I think as I made my transition now, maybe about 15, 20 years ago, from the opposite opinion of that to where I am now, one of the things that dawned on me was that, I think I've told this story before, but I remember being in the barbershop with a guy, and we got into the discussion about it, and he talked about how homosexuality was not natural. First of all, he's completely wrong. We've always had same-sex loving individuals. As a matter of fact, there are, and I've said this before, there are at least 1,500 animal species that engage in same-sex behavior, right, in nature. But I also said to him, you said this is unnatural, um, but his belief that God created all of us perfect, and that being gay was not part of us being, perfect or whatever, or natural. I said, but yet there are people who are born with half a heart, one arm, not able to see, so forth and so on, mental illness. And so, but you don't ostracize those people. You don't say that that's not natural. You don't throw those individuals away. If that's your train of thought, I'm not one that believes that homosexuality is unnatural or in any way is wrong. It happens to be is different than me, but that doesn't make it wrong. I am a heterosexual, and I'm right in me being a heterosexual, just like a homosexual is right in them being a homosexual. And so that was that, Kobe, that comment, that sort of started me really, really thinking and opening my eyes to it. But I think even a bigger issue is that I'm just opposed to mistreating anyone, right? Regardless of what you believe, how you live your life. If you're not hurting anyone, you're not hurting me, you're not hurting other people. I believe that you have the freedom to do whatever it is that you want. And I know a lot of Christians don't want to hear that. A lot of people might not want to hear that. But if you are a human being, you're an adult. You're not hurting me. You're not hurting anyone else. Do what the hell you want to do. I could care less, right? Um, it might not be my cup of tea. It might not be, but it's you. And there are things that I do that other people may not agree with. One of the beauties that I have found in living where I live now, which is just outside of Vegas, uh, it, in contrast to living in the South, where I spent 50 years, 50 plus years, is that there is less judgment out west. From what I've seen, my experience, there is less judgment. And so I really love that. So yeah, Kobe said, you're correct. Thank you. Kobe also said, I agree with you. I was looking at it biblically. Oh yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, because that's where they come from. Uh, so again, sort of to stay on topic, um, those are the things that, let's just say worst case scenario, right? We became a true theocracy, right? There are so many things that we take for granted that would be affected. Um, science would take a backseat to religion in school. Our kids would be taught that the creation story and creation is indeed fact and how we got here. If you are a young creationist, and that becomes part of the curriculum, your kids or grandkids will literally be taught that the earth is only 6 to 8,000 years old or 10,000 years old, when we have archaeological evidence that the earth is much, much, much older, right? That these kids will be taught that were indeed a real Adam and Eve, uh, that's 6,000, 8,000 years old. When we have evidence that the earliest modern man is about 200 to 250,000 years old. You think about this. There was a time when our ancestors of you African Americans were enslaved, and part of that acceptance of the enslavement was based on the fact of people's interpretation of the story of Ham. So it's not a large jump for us to believe that if we became a theocracy, that somehow someone would come up with the idea that, hey, these people of color are inferior because they are cursed. Don't think that is far-fetched. There are still African Americans today that I've had conversations with that believe that African American community is cursed because of the story of Ham. So if some of us already believe that, then those who want to suppress or oppress us, it's not a far-fetched notion that would be part of what they're pushing, right? Again, the mistreatment of anybody who is not Judeo-Christian and that lifestyle. If you're married and you don't have kids, I mean, there's a segment of Christianity and Islam, for that matter, individual people who are part of these religions that believe that the only purpose of marriage is to produce offspring. You heard a politician recently say that if you're married and you don't have kids, something is wrong with you. I don't have kids. I've been married almost 20 years. As a matter of fact, my anniversary is next week. It'll be 19 years next week, 20 years together. But we don't have kids, and neither one of us had kids when we met, and we don't have kids. So am I less human? Am I less part of society because my wife and I, we don't have kids? But that's part of the theocracy that we run into. So it's just not, oh, I don't like LGBTQ and trans. That is a minimal part of it. It is a whole host of things that we sort of take for granted. Women in the workspace. If we became a theocracy, a lot of you women who go and make your careers number one, that's not going to be the case. Your job, quote unquote, according to them, is going to be for you to be home, taking care of the family, and taking care of the husband. Now that might sound good for some of you guys until you realize that, at some point they're gonna want you to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. And that you are going to be subservient to your husband in every way possible. And so your academic knowledge, your wisdom, your insight is going to be devalued. It's going to mean nothing. If you can't produce kids and you're not a great wife being subservient to your husband, then you're not going to matter at all. And this is just not Christianity. This is Islam. This is Judaism to a certain extent. This is the Abrahamic faith. This is the threat of a theocracy. Now, granted, before people come on here and hear this, that may be an extreme version, right? However, we're seeing parts of that trying to happen now. But even in a less extreme version, there is an attack on women who choose to work in corporate or in society as opposed to having families. There is an attack on intellectualism. There's an attack on science. There's an attack on education. There's a push. They have Bibles and Christianity taught in all the schools. So, and that's in a less extreme version. That's what we see happening right now. And so this is not extreme. This is not as far-fetched as many of you would say, or as many of you would think. So again, I wanted to bring this to our attention today. The mention of the two, white supremacy, Western Christianity, and Christian nationalism, which is sort of a throw-in, just so that we are aware of that. Because I'm in the space that I'm in, I do know that there are a multitude of organizations that's fighting back, that's fighting this from the standpoint of let's get religion out of our society, which, you're not going to completely eradicate religion from our society. But one of the things that we do hope, and that I hope, and that I've written about before, is that religion becomes irrelevant to what's going on around us today. And I said it as sort of a compromise to my really devout and religious brothers and sisters. I trust me, I know it's hard to believe, but I don't have a problem with personalized religion. I don't have a problem. My wife and I had a discussion a day or two ago. I don't have a problem with people using religion to cope. I don't have a problem with people using religion to help them to get over tragedies and atrocities or things that may have happened to them that is not favorable. I don't even have a problem with people believing in an afterlife and there's some kind of deity. But what I do have a problem with is that people taking these beliefs and telling the rest of us that we need to believe these things or else we're going to burn in hell. Taking these beliefs and dictating laws and norms that we all have to abide by. So I do have an issue with those things. And so those are the things that I want us to be conscious of. And so so the compromise for me would be, yes, practice your faith. if you want to believe whatever your faith is, you want to believe in the trees or a man in the sky, whatever, do that. Do that in private. Do that, make it personal. But have it be irrelevant to how we run a country. Have it be irrelevant to how we run a school. Have it be irrelevant to how we do things in this society. So I don't want it to be mandated or dictated to me that I have to follow laws and norms that are established because of a person's religious beliefs. And so I'm throwing you an olive branch, believers. I am willing to accept the fact that we're not going to eradicate religion completely from this society, but I do hope that it becomes irrelevant in the way society is ran. Uh, I don't know if you guys knew this, but there are still 6 or 7 states who, in their state constitutions, an atheist, a non-believer, cannot be elected to a political office. I think there's 1 or 2 open non-believers or atheists that are in Congress. But again, there's still 6 or 7 states that you cannot even be elected if you are an open or known atheist. And so those are the things that we come up against. Those are the things that I thought were important. Wherever you fall in this category that I call nones, N-O-N-E-S, whether you are a person who is just beginning to question your beliefs, all the way to the other extreme where you are out and out devout atheist, or anywhere in between, it is important that we see and recognize what's going on or attempting to be going on in this country with the religious arm. And don't think that the religious piece is any less powerful or less important than the political piece or the monetary piece or whatever. It all goes together. It all goes together. The people who are in power making decisions that for some of us we may not like or may affect some of us in a bad way, they're empowered because of those individuals, right? And same on the opposite side. There were still decisions that was made by people of the other party that was also based on religious leaning. And even more so, those are individuals on the other side who decided to be apathetic or not engaged because they were torn about their religious beliefs, right? Or what they have become is resolute or just sort of like, okay, the worst that can happen is that, and this is, so if I'm a liberal Christian and I've given in to the fact that what's going to happen is going to happen from the other side. There are many liberal Christians that say, well, the worst is that we're going to be dictated and mandated through biblical scriptures or interpretation of biblical scriptures when it comes to many things in our society. And because of their faith and their position in their faith, they don't see that as being as much of a problem as, say, I do or some of you do. And that's dangerous as well, because those people are supposed to be with us fighting against this. And if they just sort of throw in the towel, as the comments that I've read earlier by Hakeem Jeffries, that is a perfect example of someone who is a liberal, a progressive liberal, in power, in authority, basically throwing in the towel and saying, God got this. Because now what that has done now is alleviate him and his responsibility for doing what he was elected to do, which is fight back. And that fighting back, part of that fighting back, for those of us who are non-believers in that community, we're wrapped up in some of that as well. And so where we may not agree with all of his policies and his position and standing, he is an unwilling ally in our fight against religion and against theocracy. And so now we have him and others who think like him who are not willing to fight. And so where does that leave us? Because as a minority within a minority, be it people of color and non-believers, even just non-believers in general, we are a minority. There are people on both sides that don't like us for whatever reason. There are certainly progressive. I mean, there are certainly conservatives evangelicals that don't like us for the very sake that we don't believe. But there are also progressive liberals who don't like us because we don't believe. Because don't be twisted. I mean, don't get it twisted. There are as many believers that are liberal as there are believers that are conservative. All of my friends, up until recently, voted Democrat, and all of them are Christians, right? And all of them hate the position that I've taken on religion. And so I'm willing to bet that if it came down to it, they would side with evangelical Christians, white evangelicals, if it meant the defeat of atheism, as they call it, right? Non-belief, as they call it. And so don't get it twisted as to who our allies are for those of us who are really in this battle, this fight to rid ourselves of religious control. Notice I didn't say to rid ourselves of religion, because I don't think that's possible, at least not in my lifetime, but certainly to rid ourselves of the influence and the input that religion has on our society as a whole. And so let me close out. Are there any other comments for anybody, any questions? Then I certainly appreciate that. But again, let me close out sort of the way I started. This is what I do full time now. A couple speaking engagements. I will be speaking at what's called Sunday Assembly here in Vegas on Sunday at 1:30 at the Atomic Museum. If you are here in the Vegas area locally, I'll be speaking there. The following Friday morning at 10:30, I'll be speaking at the SEPES, SEPES, which stands for Southeastern Psychology Organization in Greenville, South Carolina. It is a conference, so I think that's invitation only. And so with that being said, also I want to again always promote my book, because Taisha told me to always do that, but no, I need to do that as well. So again, you can pick up a copy of this book, From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity Has Been a Detriment to African Americans. Oh yeah, I want to add a couple of things. I'm working on, which would be my fifth book, but my second book in this space. And so I'll let you know more about that as it comes along. And also as part of what I'm doing, this is what I do full time now. Any of you who know of any organizations are looking for a paid speaker in this space, please recommend me, or you can send me the information and I will reach out to them as well. And hopefully within the next few months, at least before the end of the year, I will be starting a clothing line, not clothing line, but a merchandising line called Secular Wear, merchandise and clothing for non-believers. And so it would be not just clothing, but other, hats, pillows, whatever it can be, whatever we can do. And I'm looking for some partners, some manufacturing partners for that. So it would be sayings and phrases that is common in the non-belief community. And so look out for that. Those of you who are looking for some clothing wear that expresses how you feel about religion, look out for that. And so we're working on that as well. So all those things are great. Those things are coming soon. And so I'm busy. So anything else? Thank you for being here with me today. Those of you who came in late, catch the whole replay. But I'm glad to have all of you that was here. I need subscribers. Please like, please thumbs up, and please subscribe if you haven't. Have your friends subscribe, even people who hate us. Have them subscribe. They can leave all kind of crazy comments if they want to. I don't care. I try to respond to all of them whenever I see them. But yeah, so we're looking to continue to grow this channel. And thank all of you. Thank you, Neo. You guys check out Neo X's channel. A lot of good stuff there. I will warn you, some of her stuff goes 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. But it's really good stuff there. Kofi, thank you. Tron, thanks for having you. If it was your first time, certainly appreciate it. Please come back. Melanated, thank you so much for always being there. Jay Jamming, as always, thank you so much. And Taisha, I know you're out there listening. Thank you so much. And everyone else who was on here and will be on here, or who will hear the later broadcast. Thank you so much. And I will see you in 2 weeks.